for an evening of spirituality and excitement and interest. Everybody in this room knows that there are Jews in Israel, and there are Jews in Israel, right? And they don't always get along, and they don't always even believe that the other Jews are really Jews. And that is the story of this evening. We are dealing with people with heavy academic credentials. Rabbi Yerach of Meiersdorf studied in 3 Orthodox yeshivot. He grew up in a very Orthodox community, as did Nava. He went to Herzog College, enrolled in the Schechter Institute, got an MA in Jewish Studies, and earned his rabbic ordination. And now he is the rabbi for the entire Noam, that is the youth movement of the Masorti movement. Nava also grew up in a very, very Dati, Orthodox, restrictive community. They were completely blown away when she decided to enter a mixed religious, secular, pre-army course. It shocked her family entirely. She was later posted to work as a shlicha in Los Angeles and became exposed to varieties of Judaism that she had never seen and never experienced. And she found her vocation as a Jewish educator, and we are now looking at a future rabbi currently studying at JTS. From very Orthodox backgrounds, Nava and Yerach led the first service, egalitarian service at Robinson's Arch, which is the egalitarian prayer space at the Kotel. It was quite a journey. It's a very moving journey, and I'm thrilled to be here with all of you to hear about where they came from, where they are now, and what their future plans are. Please.
Thank you so much. So thank you very much for having us over. It's a lot of fun, just because we're here for a few months, and it is great just to meet different Jews from around the world. And I'll start at the end, and then we'll go to the beginning. So Nava and myself, we started a bit more than a year ago. We started a community in our living room. We have an egalitarian community. We live in a beautiful neighborhood called Karim, a very spiritual place. It's kind of an artist village on the suburb of Jerusalem. It's like right on the side of Jerusalem, if you know where Mount Herzl is, just down the road from there. And what we started to do is we found out, Nava will talk a bit how we came to build a community, but today we have once or twice a month, we have Shabbat services, Friday night, and then we have dinner, and we have about 30 to 40 people. So we start usually, like when Shabbat comes in, we start, and then we could go until 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 in the morning, depends how much wine we have. And people sitting around in our living room. We move all the chairs to the side. We sit sometimes on the floor because there's just, Baruch Hashem, there's not enough place. And people bring their own food. The thing is, it's beautiful. In the middle of the week, we have twice a week. We had 3. It was a bit too much for our personal life. So we have now twice a week we have classes, again, in our living room. Some of them we're leading, some of them we have other people that are leading. And the amazing thing is, it's an egalitarian community. It is 1.5 kilometers away from the place I grew up. I grew up in a neighborhood called Harnof. Some of you may know it just because it's a lot of Americans, ultra-Orthodox Americans come to live there. And it's a fairly famous neighborhood just maybe because of the rabbis, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, was living there, passed away a few years ago. And the Admor of Boston, there's such a thing, is down the street from where I grew up. And even though I grew up in Harnof, this may be the toughest thing in the entire session. I'm going to say to you my full name. My full name is Yerachmiel, and it's not even Yerach. I can't believe my parents decided to give me the name Yerachmiel, even though they have the ch in their rah. And when they moved to Israel, it was about 40 years ago. My mother's from Brooklyn, my father's from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And they came to Israel, they decided to live in a small city called Yerucham, south from Beersheba. My father really loved the desert, and the desert near Yerucham is called Yerachmieli Desert. So they decided to give me the name Yerachmiel. I don't know any other Yerachmiels. I've heard that there are a few more, but I don't know anyone else personally with that name. And when I was 3 months old, we moved already to Yerushalayim, so I grew up in this neighborhood. Again, very traditional. My father's an Orthodox rabbi, and he was ordained in Yeshiva University, coming to Israel, living in Harnof, and I think it was a great childhood. Like, you don't know different things. When I talk sometimes to participants in Noam, to the kids, I need to explain to them, listen, it's not the same as I grew up. You're like, why isn't it the same? First of all, there are boys and girls in the same room. In my youth movement, it was different buildings, very, very different than anything I could even think about. And what happened was, I did like most of the modern. I grew up in a very traditional modern Orthodox community, but in an ultra-Orthodox neighborhood. That means that I would pray in an ultra-Orthodox synagogue, but most of my friends were modern Orthodox. Small community in a larger community. I went to yeshiva. I went to the army, like a lot of people do. When I came back from the army, so I had a few questions. Like I'll just move before you can see me. I had a few theological questions and questions about halacha. And I came over to my sister. I have 3 older sisters. You know, I'm the youngest. And or the way I call it, 4 mothers. And I asked my youngest sister, I told her, listen, I have all these issues with why is this and that. And she said, you won't believe what happened to me. I read a paper about the conservative movement. You may be interested with this. Now, the thing is, at the time, I saw myself as a knowledgeable person. I've done a tour guide course, so I've studied Islam, I studied Christianity. Like, I don't know if I told you about all the yeshivas I went to. I studied in an ultra-Orthodox Sephardi yeshiva, and an ultra-Orthodox Ashkenazi yeshiva. I went to a yeshivat Isdil for another 1.5 years. So I thought I knew pretty much. I was saying before, after the army, I was traveling in the East. I've been living in a Buddhist monastery for some time. So I've studied Buddhism. And when my sister gave me this paper that she wrote about the different denominations in the Jewish world, it was such a shock. I don't know if this happens to you, that you stay awake all night because you're reading a book and you just can't put it down. So I start reading about the conservative movement, and I'm like, what is this? Like, they tell you reform, they say conservative, and you grow up, and you have no idea what it even means. You know it's there, you know it's bad, but you know it's there. You know it's there. You don't know what it is. And I started to go over and to read a bit more and to read more. And again, my English, I read really, really slowly in English. So what I did is like any other, this is already, I'm a bit older. I'm at the age of 22, if I'm not mistaken, at the time. And the first thing I do is, okay, let's find a synagogue. So on Google, Bet Knesset Konservativi Yerushalayim. That's the first thing I do. Now, if any of you have been to Jerusalem, you would know that the first option would come is Moreshet Israel. Moreshet Israel, Agron, center of the town. The thing is, Moreshet Israel is not the typical Israeli conservative community. But I had no idea. So I had to go there. I was living at the time in a place called Givat Mordechai, so it was 45 minutes just to get to there, and 45 minutes to walk back. And and I started to go to Masorti Judaism. Now my friends would come and say to me, "Where are you going? How's it taking so much time?" So I had to lie to them because I didn't want to tell them I'm going to a conservative synagogue. So I told them, "There's a great Kalibach minyan, and I love it." And they're like, "Oh, you and your Kalibach, okay." So I started, and it takes a lot of time. And the first time I entered the synagogue, there's a cantor there, Ahuva Tamar Batz. Tamar, that's her name. And Ahuva Tamar Bat. And for someone that grew up in a very traditional house, again, you walk into the synagogue, so if you've been to Masorti Judaism, they have what I call the Izrat Gvarim. You could walk upstairs to all the people that are hiding in the synagogue. They just go upstairs, where it used to be where women would be. Now, because it's a egalitarian, you have some people that are just hiding there, such as I did. And she was the cantor. She has an amazing voice, and I was listening to her. I was like, this is amazing. At the same time, I felt like the puke was going up. Like I'm about to throw up. Like, what you're doing is wrong. And it took some time. I was embarrassed to tell my friends and family that I'm going to a conservative synagogue. Same time again, tzitziot, kippah, shalosh tefillot a day. Everything is the same. Just I'm not telling them that I'm going to a conservative synagogue. This was about 2.5 years. I'm not sure exactly. And I was doing my bachelor's at the time, so everything was pretty easy. I'm a student in Jerusalem. And then I saw in the synagogue that there is just a brochure, like a template about who wants to do a master's. And I said to myself, this is my opportunity to meet all the other conservative Jews. I just got to tell you, the average age in Masorti Judaism is a bit older than myself. So I didn't have that many friends. And I decided to, whoever was in the synagogue knows the synagogue. And I decided I have to go to Machon Shechtel to meet all these different people, and it was a bit midrash program. Said it's great. I was at the same time doing again my bachelor's.
You wanted to meet your wife there.
That is correct. And I didn't, so I decided, you know what, I'll go. I'll go to Schechter, and I understood that if I am going to there, this is the time I need to talk to my parents, and I need to tell my parents, I'm conservative. I was very much afraid about what they're going to say. Again, have an amazing family, but when you do a move, when you want to change your life, sometimes you feel like everybody is judging you, even though someone is just looking at you. You look back and you say, does he know that I'm going to a conservative synagogue? Even though not the worst thing. And I made a mistake. I'm still arguing about this with my mother because she says this is not exactly what happened, but I'm sure I'm correct. I called them. I'm already 24, 25. I am single. I'm in the modern Orthodox community of our traditional community. And I called my parents and I told them, hi, Mom, Dad, I don't remember who I talked to. I would love us to go out just to a coffee shop and let's sit down and talk. And I hung up and I understood that they would think that I'm going to tell them that I am gay. And I get to the coffee shop and I see my mother sitting there, like my parents come early, each place there, and I see she's schwitzing and I was like, okay, I gotta tell you, I feel very connected and I decided I want to be a conservative Jew. And my mother is like, that's great. And my father was also excited because my father, what he knows about the conservative movement is he knows Lieberman, and he knows Heschel, and he knows all these conservative scholars, and he was like, you'll be a Talmud scholar, that's amazing. And I remember this entire talk, I was, listen, the halacha is different, and the way, and this and that, and he's like, no, everything's okay, that's great. I was a bit confused with what's going on. After, first of all, it was great to take it off my chest. I was in such intense before meeting and talking to them. And I went to rabbinical school. I went to an amazing community in Israel. It's in the southern part of Israel, again, close to Beersheba. I've done their internship over there. They came over to me in Shachter and they asked me, and listen, do you want to do a rabbinical internship? And I was just there for my master's, and I told them there's no way I'm going to be a rabbi. I was about to be a teacher at the time and a tour guide. So I said, why should I even do it? And then they told me how much money I'll make, and I said, you know what, I think I'll join you. And the thing is, it's very tough to find a job while you're doing a master's 2 days a week. So it was like, this is great. It fits exactly to my schedule. And I was there for 2 years in Omel. The community is called Magen Avraham. And I was working with a rabbi there. I couldn't believe what the rabbinical work is, because you don't really know what it is till you're interning. You're doing an internship. And after 2 years over there, I decided, you know what, I really want to go to rabbinical school. So I joined rabbinical school and didn't move that far. I did my internship in Beersheba. But during the time that I've been in Shachter, I understood that because I came from an Orthodox background, I have never met conservative Jews. Only thing I've done is I met books, and I've read about the conservative movement, but I don't know what a conservative synagogue looks like outside of Israel, and I don't know what people talk about. I have no idea what the movement really looks like. So I decided I want to go to see JTS, and I want to see Camp Ramah. So it took a lot to make these two organizations just compel, and Shachter were able to talk to JTS, and JTS told Shachter, listen, we want Yerach to come and study with us, and Shachter said, and I was able to move from Israel to do a semester in JTS, because all the rabbinical students in JTS do a semester in Israel, a year. And I asked to do at least one semester at JTS, and they allowed it. And I came to New York, and I was living here. And I went to Camp Ramah. And I was so excited to meet. It was a lot of things that were great about Camp Ramah, but one of the things that were touching to me the most is meeting conservative rabbis working in the camp. So I told myself, you know what? When I came back to Israel, why shouldn't I do the same thing? So I called the rabbi at the time of Noam. Her name was Idit, and now she's Harav Idit. And I told her, listen, I really want to come to the summer camp in Israel because I want to meet the Noam kids. I have no idea who they are. And she said, all you need to do is you'll stay in the Bet Midrash. If anyone has questions, talk to them. The rest is you could write all your papers. You'll just enjoy the weather. I don't know why I thought that the July-August weather is like a pleasant time in Israel, but when they say, when you sit in like November, you talk to people, everything sounds like, wow, sounds great. After 2 days in the summer camp, she was sick. So she left the summer camp and I was there by myself. And I found out that I enjoyed myself even much more than even being in Camp Ramah. And again, the discussions with the kids were amazing. So pretty much since I think I was in my third year of rabbinical school, every year I went to the summer camp of Noam to work as a rabbi of Noam. And when I was finishing with rabbinical school, I came over to Noam and I told them, listen, I know that you haven't had a rabbi, full-time rabbi for the last 15 years, but I want to be the rabbi of Noam Israel. There were different rabbis that did like different jobs. So this is something I want. Are you willing to accept me? And I was very happy that it worked out. And since my ordination, I've been the rabbi of Noam in Israel. And I think the highlight of my school in Israel was when I was at my 5th year of rabbinical school, I found the best thing in my life, which is Nava, just entering Shachter at her first year. So we met at school, and then, and then we got married, but that's already something.
That's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother talk. So, I think I'll drink some water, and now you can talk about yours. Yeah.
אז נעים מאוד, שלום, חודש טוב, also want to say that. I started with a nigun of Yehi Chodesh Hazeh that we're blessing this month. Even though we read the news this morning and they were kind of painful from Israel in the Kotel, which we just talked about that even though Neshot HaKotel not necessarily conservatives, but we're really supporting their act of wanting to pray the way they believe and a Jewish state as Jewish women. So I grew up Orthodox. I didn't know even what Orthodox is. כאילו פשוט גדלנו, we grew up חרדי לאומי. We knew that there is something, like reform was a general name for everything that is not dati or chiloni. That's how I grew up in Petach Tikva, to an Israeli family. My first time in a conservative shul was kind of an accident. My dad loved chazanut, like cantorials.
Yeah.
He loved that. So once a
In
month.
English, I think it's called chazanas.
So once a month we used to go to Jerusalem for Shabbat to pray in the great synagogue. It's an Orthodox, huge synagogue that they have like a choir and a big chazan. And I did not like it as a little girl. And I mean, I did like praying, but not like that, not then. So I saw the other synagogue right next to it, so I asked my dad if I can go to that shul. And he said, as long as you're not asking me to go there, because I'm a man and I have to pray. And you're a girl, you can do whatever you want. So I asked my mom if she can join me, and my dad said she's also a woman, she doesn't have to go, so yeah, she can go with you. So we went there. I think my mom felt like Yerach pretty much on her first time. And after 10 minutes, we had to go. That was too much. But in those 10 minutes, we talked about it and we realized it was the same chazanit. And what I remember was actually, first, I want to say something. It was this lady in the entrance that welcomed us and says, welcome, here's a siddur for you, and you're welcome to sit here in the middle of the shul. And I saw Ezrat Nashim there. There is like another platform that you can see. I can't tell you how it felt. It felt weird. It felt like it's not my place to sit so close to the ark. That was my first experience, those 10 minutes. But I continued with my life. I went to do a national service because in my school we didn't have the opportunity to go to Tzav Rishon to serve in the army. We all had to go to Shorut Leumi. And after that, as you heard before, I went to a pre-army program after I did Shorut Leumi. And it was actually a very Hasidic program that I was explored to Eshel and Buber and great people and books that I've never heard of. And it started to open my mind, and I started to see a different way and more opinions of Judaism, but I still I love Judaism. I didn't know that you can do it any other way. I loved going to shul. I didn't care so much that I'm sitting up there as long as I can pray. I was really okay with that. It's really important for me to say, as long as I didn't know it, you can do it any other way. I know my sister, she hated it. On Simchat Torah, she was from those women that get upset. Like, if I don't get to dance with the Sefer Torah, I don't want to be here at all. And I was like, no, this is my place. I'm okay with that. I was really, really okay. And I went after this to a college called Emunah College, that you can guess by the name, that it's a girls-only school for arts and education, because obviously you're not going to be an actress or a singer or something, like you're going to be a teacher for that. And that's what I did. And I loved it. And I actually loved learning there. It's a great school, and I really appreciate everything I've learned there, and I've learned in my high school, the ultra-Orthodox high school. And then I went to Los Angeles. I went to study there. And that's when I actually was introduced to the conservative way. I remember I got this work in a Sephardic temple. I don't know if anyone knows. It's a great big shul. It's actually very shamrani, like very traditional, but conservative. It's still egalitarian. I had no idea. I just knew it's conservative, and for me, I was like, conservative, reform. I had no idea what's the different, and I just knew it's something very different. I remember calling the rabbi there, asking her, what am I allowed to speak about? Like, am I allowed to mention God? I really had no idea. I think from there, I mean, from age 0 it probably started as a journey, but from there it really started to change. After 3 years there, my dad passed away in Israel. I was able to be with him in the last month of his life. Like I went back to Israel, but then I have to go back to Los Angeles to finish the year, the school year. But it made me realize that we'll have time for a question. So I realized that I need to be in Israel. So after the school year was ended, I came back to Israel. But then it wasn't so easy. What do I do? How do I continue with that? I found out that I can do more as a Jewish woman. And that was the place that I came from. I saw women that could lead, that could speak, and not just to fight, to actually say something important, to actually study Torah, to be very Jewish, not batzad, not on the side. And that's how I got to Schechter. I was Googling like Jewish studies, and that's how I got to Schechter, and that's when I met Yerach. But it really just the beginning of it, because from there, I was still, I mean, I didn't define myself as a Haredi anymore, even though, I've never stopped my path in my Judaism, but I remember my nieces and nephews came to me one day, like, we cannot understand. Sometimes you seem so religious, but then you say something that's so pluralistic. Are you still a datiya? Like sometimes, like see, I'm not covering my elbows, so am I datiya? I wrote some notes. So I didn't came out of the Aron HaKodesh, the holy closet, as Yerach did. It was a real process. I was also offered to go to Omer, to be there, and I was very lucky that they offered me that because it really changed my life also. I was explored to a real Israeli egalitarian community. I was explored to how to become like this, and I got really close to Rabbi Yerachmiel. I don't know if you know him. He was one of the first rabbis that started the Masorti movement in Israel, and he really taught me a lot how to start a community. I was lucky to sit with him for hours and talk about that there. And yes, I also realized that I want to continue and study Rabbanut. I'm trying to think where to go from here. I was also working in Tel Aviv, in schools in Tel Aviv, to teach them, we call it Tarbut Ivrit, Hebrew culture. And not every school even want that. Basically, I don't know if you know, the education ministry told all the schools that every class, every age in Israel need to have at least 1 hour a week of Jewish studies. And most schools prefer to get it for free from those organizations. And I actually used to be one of them as a Shirut Leumi, that they bring them 18 years old girls to teach them how it's okay to observe Shabbat, how it's okay to believe in God, and how it's okay to pray, and which it's beautiful to explore them to that. But sometimes they can come and say, this is how you need to do it. And mostly in Tel Aviv, for now, hopefully it will not last like that. Schools there are not so happy to get those girls, and they're taking more pluralistic organizations to bring other teachers. And what I did there was really important for me. I felt like I'm protecting the Yadut that I believe it should be. I never hidden other opinions, the Orthodox opinions and reforms. And I remember like one day, I think you came that day, that I put on the board, Reformim, Orthodoxim, Conservativim, and we really filled it up. And we had to explore all of the ways to practice Judaism and all the ways that people can think about God. And everything was okay to explore. And this is Hebrew culture. So when people saying in Israel, Hadata, Hadata, I want to tell them that, yes, it's horrible, but we're there to protect them. So that was one thing that I'm really happy about, that I was lucky enough to be involved in. And one other thing that you also have it here in that paper that I was really excited to see, because right before I walked in, I don't know if anyone saw me outside, Yerach took a video of me. I'm working in Adraba. Adraba is Irgun Bat. It's a part of the Masorti movement in Israel that works with special needs. And the program that I'm working at, it's the Bar and Bat Mitzvah program. And I don't know how we're not talking about it more. I think it's just important as any equality that we want to talk about. Growing up, I loved volunteering. I tried to help everywhere I could. And helping with special needs was great, but we're always helping them. We never got the feeling that we're all one, or one community. And it's very simple, because in many communities in Israel, I'm embarrassed to say that. That's why I'm speaking like that. They're not looking. They can't count them to a minyan. With some special needs, they're not part of the minyan. So therefore, they can't have bar mitzvah, not mentioning bat mitzvah. And by celebrating their bar mitzvah, it means that we're looking at them as part of our community. And I care so deeply about that, because I want to be one of the community. I want to be counted to a minyan. Even if they're not counting me, I want to be. I count every one of the people that consider. Yeah, that's something that I care deeply about, and I think we should talk more about that. I don't know, a few months ago, there is a radio station that we love listening to. It's a Haredi radio station called Radio Kol Chai in Israel. They have great music, and they have great, every morning at 6 o'clock, they have a daf yomi. They're reading the Gemara of the day. I love it. And then sometimes they have shooting. Shooting means she'elot and shuvot, Q&A.
Responsive.
Yeah, and they get the questions and the facts. Facts. They don't have smartphones. So this one question came from a father to a special need kid. Said his son only communicate with the iPad, and on Shabbat he can't leave the iPad because he's so attached to it, and he starts crying and screaming. What can I do? Do I take it away from him, or can he use it on Shabbat? And the rabbi said, you can let him use the iPad on Shabbat. Great. But the reason why he said he can use the iPad on Shabbat, because he said he doesn't have a Havana. So anyway, he's never going to be able to be part of Mechuyav LeMitzvot. And hearing that was so sad to me, because in our program, we use the iPad to communicate with them, to make them as one of us. They're praying with the iPad. We're not even saying press, but when they're pressing the iPad, they're praying. I'll never come to a kid and say press. I'll say pray. This is how they pray. So that's the biggest difference for me. And this is why I'm so happy to be a part of that. Yerach mentioned the Keilah in Karem. He started with it, and I'll finish with it. When we were searching for a place to build our home, we knew we want a community. We need a community. But we also really, really love Karem. It's a spiritual, beautiful place, and it has everything we wanted. But there is no community. It was either there or Baka, which has so many communities that we love, and we decided to go to Karem to take this risk. Can you say what you told me on the first Shabbat?
I hope it's okay.
Okay, so on the first Shabbat in Karem, everybody told us that there is a Orthodox shul there. I want to say very clear, they're adorable, sweet people. They said they're so pluralist, don't worry, they'll be okay with you. They weren't. Yes, as friends, we're friends. That's why it's so important. I love them. We're friends. But they're not okay with our egalitarianism or me wearing a talit. So on our first Shabbat there, I was standing behind a wall. It was a wall. It wasn't even mechitza. It was straight wall. I came back from shul crying because, if I'm going to visit his parents or my mom, it's okay. We're a guest. It's not my shul. I'm okay with that. I can respect. But when it's my home, and we didn't have a community then, I started to cry. And Yerach said, this is also my fight. But you're part of there. You can see, you can be a part of the tefillah. And he gave a beautiful example.
I don't know what you're about to say, so.
That if it would be here on the. You want to say it?
No, I think it's a bit harsh. I said that that I know, again, Rosa Park. I was talking about Rosa Park, about other people that were sitting on the bus at the same time. The white people that were sitting on the bus, and they had no problem just leaving it the way it is.
So you said you want to believe that you wouldn't sit in the front, if I would be able to sit on the front. And it touched me a lot to know that it's not only my fight, just like it's not the special needs people fight, it's all of us. And yes, Baruch Hashem, it's growing and it's happening, the community, and there is a place for Jewish people from all around the world now, in Karem, in Jerusalem, to be Jewish the way that they believe, the way that we believe. It's open, and I'm so thankful for that.
אני אמשיך?
אוקיי.
יפה מאוד. עכשיו? אז אני...
Would you like to take questions?
So,
Nava, I understand that you had an experience at the hotel that was pretty dramatic with Women of the Wall, and maybe people would be interested in hearing about that experience.
so it was actually on Rosh Chodesh Adar, which is supposed to be the happiest month. They just used this picture that some journalists took. Yesterday I was scrolling on Facebook and I saw my picture there, and it brought me back to those memories. It was probably the worst day of my life. As I said, my heart is with them, but I've never been in that tefillot. I feel like my fight is to make the egalitarian kotel more accessible, more merkazi, like more central. This is my place to pray. We're going there a lot. so I didn't go, but this it was Friday morning, and Yerach went with his students. So I joined them, but I said I'm gonna stay outside. I wasn't even planning to go into the mehuma. I was standing outside on the side. I was actually sitting aside next to a few Haredi girls, and I didn't look much different than them. Nobody noticed my flourish talit till I took it out, because I mean it was still very powerful. Like, I watched the kotel, I was really far away, and I wanted to like spiritually support it. And I started to pray, and actually this one girl handed the sidurim to all the seminary girls, and she had one left, and she noticed already that I'm not part of them. So she was holding it, and I came to her like, "Can I have one?" And she gave it to me. Like, it was really awkward moment, but she gave it to me, and I prayed. It was a beautiful tefillah, because I felt like, oh, I'm surrounded by all of Am Yisrael. This is how it should be. How beautiful. And then in the middle of tefillat Amidah, I'm starting to feel things being thrown at me. It was like wooden sticks and some liquids. I still don't know what it is. It didn't smell well. And then I opened my eyes. It was like Selatei Malach. Hamon Zoem. I don't know how to do it. Like tons of. It looked black. It was like people wearing black coming to me. It was like hundreds of people. Because, I mean, they just saw one woman on the side, really far away from everything, and they were, like, needed something to yell on. And they ran to me, like, it was, everything was really, really quick. The police tried to separate it. They managed it somewhat. I mean, I was still, like, I lost my watch, I was, whatever, but it was, like, mostly what I went there, I mean, the things I heard there, I also, but I want to mention the good parts of it, because I was in the middle of Tfilat Shmoneh Esrei, and those girls that were there, that gave me the siddur, yelled at the boys, "Stop it, she's in the middle now." It didn't matter to them, but just the fact that those two girls said something, I wanted to mention that. And then I wanted to continue because I didn't finish the Hallel, and I went to the literary kotel, and there I felt this is my place, this is my home, this is my fun. But I also think that those women that want to pray just with women, and this is their belief, they should do it. I mean, it's ridiculous that in a Jewish country, I mean, we didn't get to talk about our wedding and the way we needed to throw a wedding. We're still not considered as a married couple in Israel. That's also, like, it's all about it. And we had a beautiful, huge wedding, but still, because we didn't get married in the Rabbanut. Yeah, so it's their fight, but as I said, it's also our fight to be with them and to support them.
Can you say what happened today?
Today?
Because not everybody maybe knows. You mentioned.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
It
It was also a lot of anger. It's like every month like that. I know yesterday one of the teachers from the conservative yeshiva got arrested. From what I understood, a lot of boys started to yell at him and threaten him, and only when he said something like, "Please stop," probably with a lot of, like, I'm imagining it say, like, "Please stop," like, "Please stop," and then the cops arrested him. And I mean, I was able to only see from my Facebook feed and on the people that wrote, and I'm still very connected to the people from my past, so I'm still following also a lot of Orthodox rabbis that wrote things about it. And actually, Rabbi Yerachmiel, which is an Orthodox rabbi, he wrote today how they should stop convincing, the rabbi should stop convincing the students to go and use the kotel as a protest place. Beautiful, right? He has so many horrible comments there from his people. What about those reforms? They're coming to protest there. Imagine if Orthodox person will walk into a reform shul, you think they wouldn't kill him? There are so many answers to that, it doesn't matter. The person who wrote it probably wouldn't listen. We get those comments. So remember this one night. So, as we said, the communities in our living room, therefore also the phone number is my cell phone. And this one night, I was looking at Facebook, and I started to see really horrible comments on posts from our minyan. And a few minutes after, like horrible comments. I'm not talking in that language, so I can't even repeat it. I get a number from, I get a phone call from a number I don't recognize. I had a feeling it has something to do with that, because this is my phone number there, but I picked up anyway. It was like 10 or 11 at night. And yeah, he threatened me. I remember, like, I couldn't sleep that night. Do you know what it doesn't matter, but yeah, basically we're the worst that could ever happen to the Jewish people. And it's sad.
On the other hand, like you had mentioned that the non-Orthodox are now actually okay with going to the camp. They have like a growing group there. Can you talk a little bit more about where you do sort of get along, where there are some more partnerships between Masorti and...
You can say that, I'll say, this is, when we meet people, and we meet a lot of people, I'm talking about the amount of schools and pre-army programs that I go to talk to them. First time they meet a conservative Jew, usually it would be me. And we started to understand that there are many people that are in the middle. It's called the pizza pie paradigma. Have you heard of it before? That's a bit odd. Okay, how are you with imagination? We'll do this real short. If there's this a giant pizza pie, okay, and I have like 8 slices, what it means is that each slice, we'll talk about now liberal and much more conservative, small c, it means that if in for example, the conservative movement, this conservative slice, the people that are near the tip, the more liberal people, will have a great conversation with Orthodox or Reform or Muslim or Christian, it doesn't matter. And people at the bottom, at the crust, they will have a better, easier time to talk to other people that are also very conservative with how they feel. So we found out that the liberal people, even if they're Orthodox, for example, are much closer to the conservative movement's idea, the Masorti movement in Israel. And for example, in Noam, this is very interesting. I had a bit less than a year ago, a open Orthodox community from Beersheba. They were thinking about different, where they want to send their kids. So they had one idea was Bnei Akiva, another one was the religious scouts, or the just regular scouts, and then they heard about Noam, because one person in their community was a conservative rabbi. So I head down to Beersheba and I talked to them, and they told me that they, even if they have their religious traditions are much more traditional, they still want the conservative values, so they want their children to go to Noam. That was the first time we had an entire branch of Noam, Orthodox. That was the first time we had it. That was about a year ago. Since then, we have in cities that are much more, I think you could say, open-minded, like Modi'in and Ra'anana, people over there, we are having much more Orthodox children coming to Noam. The last year, we've had this it must be 4 months ago, we had our largest branch now, from Maskeret Batya that have joined, 120 kids, joined Noam. Half of them are Orthodox. And again, they want their Judaism through Noam. Because what we do in Noam, and this is a bit different, is we put focus. Nava was talking about this before. A lot of people in Israel are afraid of, if you talk about religion, that means I gotta force you to my beliefs. There's no concept like, if there is here, for example, this is something that just doesn't exist in Israel. Kids would go to Hebrew school. It doesn't work, because if you go to Hebrew school, it means that you are invested in being obligated to that community. And in Israel, we are starting now to break down those paradigms that you could also come, you could talk about Judaism, but it doesn't mean everybody will force you to change the way you believe. So for example, the kids come to us in Noam, and I've built an entire program. Like I say, not done a lot in this youth movement. If there's one good thing I've done, from like what they need to do until when they're 18 years old, how they need to leave the movement. So we're having much more Orthodox people that are joining us. And the truth is, we believe that the conservative ideas from pretty much here, 50s, 60s, are very much aligned with today open Orthodoxy and traditional, what's called Chiloni people in Israel. So that's why we have much more.
So today in Haaretz, in Israel, in Hebrew, there was like a tiny piece talking about, and the headline was, Israelis believe in God, not rabbis. Did you see that?
No, but it makes...
Okay, you saw it. And I wanted to hear, because you are both so inspiring, amazing rabbinic leaders, and I want to hear about how, in your generation, because I've seen a big shift of our generation to the generation of our parents, of how they look at rabbis. So I would love to hear about your experience of what happens when you say that you're a rabbi.
So, first of all, again, our generation is very different. If you think about the people that came to Israel, and most of the secular people that came to Israel, the idea was, again, what happened in Europe, this is not something we want to talk about. I'm not talking about I'm talking about my grandparents. Like that age that came to Israel, they were pretty much fighting against something. And their children, again, they're in this war about different identities and how the state of Israel needs to look. Should it be Dati? Should it be Chiloni? There's a lot of wars going on. Should it be social? Should it be capitalist? These are things that families were split. Our generation, we sometimes look at these wars and we say to ourselves, what the hell were they fighting about? We don't understand it. And breaking down that idea is, and this is what we do a lot, is you should be very conscious about your Jewish identity. That is very important. It doesn't mean you have to go after this and that certain rabbi. Again, for you this may sound like, okay, makes a lot of sense. I could be very Jewish, but I don't need, if some rabbi says something, it doesn't mean it has anything to do, especially with me. That's not the case in Israel. And first of all, most people when they meet us, I'll say about myself, they're always very supportive. I know there are people that I have, there's a lot of issues, but usually there are people that have never met me personally. That means most of my friends are pretty happy. If I deal, I'll even say, and I know if this video will come to my father, it will be interesting, but I believe that my family, and also my father, my daddy, is pretty much, after explaining this, they will even come aboard with the idea, again, liberal ideas, infused with Jewish traditions, like mainstream Judaism. And sometimes when I meet people and communities, we need to just make them understand, like, all the baggage it's like I need to take all their baggage off and explain to them a lot about Judaism, much more than, like if you meet, is there any doctor here? So you know, if there's any doctor, so when someone's a doctor and you say, I'm a doctor, and people start telling them their problems. So as a rabbi, when I meet people, they immediately tell like all their issues with Judaism, and it happens a lot. I'll just say, you want to say something about our community, about how our community is the reason people would come to our community and not to another community is we talk about spiritual ideas and not about halacha. Again, we don't play with instruments on Shabbat, and some people don't like that. Jewish community, yes. But still, what we do is it's a different group of people that come because they talk about their spirituality instead of talking about which group they feel connected to. So I hope so.
First of all, I've never heard anybody say Meiersdorf. I have family who live there with children, so I don't know if they've been part of Noam or not. And my nephew's also a tour guide, so I don't know if we can cross that. But you just said that, unless I misunderstood, that in explaining the philosophy of the conservative movement to these Orthodox people that you're saying the conservative movement of the 50s and 60s is very close to, modern Orthodoxy or open Orthodoxy, except, however, my understanding, and I've also worked at JTS, is that, the 50s, 60s model of conservative Judaism, except for very, few areas, no longer exists in America. So how then, if you're explaining them the 50-60 model, which sounds good, how does that work with the 2019 model, which, is quite different?
It's a full. I'll try to do this in a few sentences. The idea of mainstream Judaism is a concept that, again, your value. I don't know. Again, people in the room, our values align with our Jewish tradition, and in Israel, at the year 2019, the Jewish community does not see Judaism the same way as the Jewish community in the United States. That's my belief. They see it much more again, this is just me, 50s, 60s, the Jewish ideology, this is how the people see it, and that's why, for example, you'll have not a full Renaissance, but people, for example, like Nava said, modern Orthodox today, who is the most important rabbi that they're studying about? Not a Rav Kook. Who will it be? Believe it or not, Avraham Yehoshua Heschel. Today, 2019, all the books that are coming out are now, people do not know who he is, and again, that's how I feel it is today.
Well, to me, I think that when you say the Jewish community in Israel, I don't think that Israelis see it as a Jewish community. It's the country. It's where they live. It doesn't dominate your everyday life discussion. Here, we need to be a community to keep ourselves safe and to keep us connected to one another. So I think that differentiates how an Israeli sees an American Jew and how an American Jew can see an Israeli. The other thing is that I grew up in Israel for a little bit. Excuse me. My daughter actually is in the process of making Aliyah. And she lives in Jerusalem. She grew up conservative in the synagogue and has become more observant. And she keeps Shabbat. She walks to synagogue. But those are all the things that we do here. In Israel, when somebody hears conservative, they just assume, oh, thank you so much. That's usually my job. Thank you. They just assume that you are reformed, you eat pork, you eat shrimp.
You're half Christian, and you're
exactly.
half,
There is the idea of Masorti that's where the movement needs to be working, is to educate people that we are as Jewish as the ones who you're considering that aren't. And that's, you know, so many people hate us and we hate each other there more than everything else, and it's a problem. I see it with the younger generation of my children's age. And I'd like to know where your community is, because I'd like to share it with my daughter.
Of course. So first of all, I absolutely agree. We're facing different challenges.
Yeah.
They're both really difficult challenges. Here you have very strong communities, and the challenge is to keep the Jewish community. In Israel, we don't, like, nobody feels that you need a community. I mean, we felt, because I wanted a rabbi to follow. But yes, Shabbat, Friday in Israel, everybody feels it's Shabbat. Like the radio, Galgalatz, you hear it's coming. So I absolutely agree. And then people, look, as I started, there is either dati or chiloni, but even if you're chiloni, you do something for Shabbat. Like either it's a family dinner, you maybe never have ever been in a kotel, but you know what Shabbat is. So those are, I mean, yeah, this is our challenge to, I mean, I don't even want to say that I want to convince everybody to be, to practice their Yadut in the same way, but I want to bring the knowledge, or you have, like you said, something beautiful before, about like what is the conservative movement for you in Israel, the main,
No, I don't know.
that it should be the mainstream. But I don't want to say that there shouldn't be any more Orthodox. It should be. I'm so grateful for the way I grew up and I've learned so much. But it doesn't make sense that this is their only option. And this is our challenge.
That's what we're trying. This is, again, I know it's so much on our shoulders, but that's why we spent days and nights and driving around. It's a small country, I know. Driving around and talking to people, just to expose. Because you know, if I've seen a great movie and I want other people to see it. So it's a part of. One of our major parts is just to expose the Israeli community to the concept itself, and thank you for also doing that.
I just wanted to second what Ori just said. I have family in Israel and they're all Orthodox. And I usually try to avoid the conversation because I don't want to get fight with my family. So, but we had a guest on Shabbat at my parents' house. And she started asking me, so I answered. I didn't start the conversation, but I was polite, so I answered. And she said to me, but you're reformed. And I said, no, we're not reformed. In America, there are different levels, and we're considered conservative. And she said, what's the difference? So I started explaining to her, and I said, a lot of temple members in the temple that we belong, a lot of people are actually within walking distance because it's important for them to walk on Shabbat. Some of them take the car, but a lot of them don't. And we'll respect Shabbat the same way you do, but I take the car, but I don't cook. It's my choice. And she said, well, how can you have a choice? You have to follow the rules or you don't. And I said, it's my choice. So I follow certain rules and I don't follow others. She was floored that there was a difference between Reformed and conservative. She thought either you're Orthodox or you're not.
So there's.
And so I saw her eyes lit up when I said we're conservative, and I explained the difference, and she was like, so you don't light the candles? You don't cook on Shabbat and all that? I said, no, we don't, but we take the car. I'm sorry, we take the car, we drive, but we'll respect Shabbat just as much as you do. She was floored. She couldn't believe that we do Shabbat and that.
You need to be serious about what you're doing to be in the game, if I call it that way. For example, I think the best example, Orthodox women that started going to the army. If it would start with the girls that are going to the army that are not that religious, and they are not in the, I don't know how to say this. Yeah, and they're not in the best schools, and they're pretty much outskirts of the community. So what happened is people will just say, okay, this is not a serious thing. But because those girls are very serious about their Judaism, I think today you could say, I don't know how much the modern Orthodox world changed about women going to the army. For us, for example, we need to be the Masorti movement. We need to be really serious about our Judaism so we can change the Israeli community. And just so you should understand, I know it's a bit different, Israel and the United States, because, for example, I don't know, different communities, New Jersey, I have no idea, and it's not the best example, because to form a government in Israel, you need a coalition. But the idea is that you need to have a coalition. You need to have different people talking among each other. And I know it's different here, because the moment you change the White House, everything can also change. I do see Israel as one community. I know the President Rivlin divided into four, and he had a very important speech, but there is an organism that's moving in the, I believe, Jewish Israeli community. There are a few things that, just so you should know, things that are playing in our favor, some things are not. For example, the gay, the LGBTQ, I don't know if there are any more letters today, because the people that are against that community are also against egalitarian Judaism and liberal Judaism. It means that a lot of things are changing also in our favor. Does that make sense? And the Jewish community is changing. So, for example, we know that there is no civil marriage in Israel, but that's just because of the constellation of the government, and not because the Jewish community is for it. That means that if you will have a survey in Haaretz, they've had so many of these surveys, and most Israelis want to have marriage. Yes. So the community is changing.
Nava, you mentioned that your sister wanted to dance with the Torah. Did she move to your community, or is she still with?
So my sister is an artist. You can search her on YouTube. She actually published a few songs, but she's also a painter, and all of her art relates somehow to Yadut, and you can tell it's a Jewish woman that has a lot of anger there from that place. No, I don't know if anger. It's really interesting. Like, she has a whole series of Chassidot with a triangle.
Stalks, but it's called
Oh,
Hasidah,
interesting. Yeah.
and it's like instead of a Hasid.
So
So
but
it's
her
a whole
best
thing.
song that got a lot of publicity, like it was all over Galgalatz and
The billboards in Israel.
yeah, like the top 10 songs. It's called Lama lo natatem li lashir, Why You Didn't Let Me Sing. And no, it's called Shir HaKavod. Do you sing Shir HaKavod here?
Yes,
Oh,
Ani
that's it.
Smirati.
So it's all about that.
And it's also the respect song. So yeah, she's dealing with that in her own way.
What's your name?
Mor Berenstein.
But Shai decided to do bar mitzvah.
Yeah. So she's not really going to shul today. I think she respects us the way.
She called me yesterday to ask me to help her with the Jewish text for another song that she's having. Yeah.
But yeah, she's like
Struggling.
She's not. I think she was hurted by the Yahadut. Like that's how in Israel you see the Yahadut as dati, or also I have another brother that he grew up also in an ultra-Orthodox yeshiva. He's not religious anymore today, but he wouldn't come to a conservative shul. And I'm giving my brother and my sister as an example to many Jews that saw this Yahadut. But when my niece had a bar mitzvah this year, his wife, she grew up secular, so she didn't have this issue. She was like, well, if you're already going to celebrate his bar mitzvah, I want to be a part of it. And they did it in egalitarian kotel. yeah, so there was Yerachmiel that, it was beautiful. Yeah, unfortunately, my other sister, that she's very Orthodox, she didn't go there. Because she was afraid that people will see her going to that section of the kotel.
Mari Zion.
Yeah.
How was the Kabbalat Shabbat program working? I know you were at the first one, is that going well, or
I didn't
no incidents, we hope?
We got there, we go a lot to the Western Wall, like, a lot.
It
This
wasn't
is
the
not,
same Shabbat, right?
no, again, this is not, we're not the typical, okay. And we entered, we started the services, and we had like 20, 30 people, so we started to teach a bit about Kabbalat Shabbat, and then we started Kabbalat Shabbat, and we turned around in the middle, and there were 400 people.
Yeah, and I hear it just growing, and it's
Good.
The idea is that people that want to have an egalitarian service should have every Friday night a service available. The problem is just to have all the people come at the same time. That takes a lot.
no, but also because it's we spoke about the Neshot HaKotel, and what's happening many times that we're
And many times it's very tough to be in Israel, because sometimes it's just, let us just do what we do, with not too much.
it's going.
It is, we feel like, again, we're now in the incline, how's that? Incline. But it's a lot going on, and that's why it's so much fun to come just to these communities and to see people just oh yeah, service, why didn't you come, why did you come? Like, it's amazing just to see.
We get to learn a lot
Yeah.
from communities, like strong communities, so it brings us a lot of strength and faith. So I think I really want to thank you for just being here.
And we'd
Do you have
like
a
to
question?
thank you for coming and for sharing your experience with us. And for the little Tam Yisraeli that you have provided, the little taste of Israel that you've provided to all of us. Your direct experience is so poignant and so moving to us. We can read in the newspapers, and we all follow the news from Israel, but to have Israelis come and share their lives with us was really a treat, and thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
You should come on Shabbat.
You know, we talk about